normally in an effects movie, like even in a Star Wars, there's like a cantina scene where it's like, okay, and here they're just humans that are in the cockpit or in the cantina, like they're just talking, and that doesn't require visual effects, you know? But in this movie, even the talking scenes, she's strapped to his back with to erase her legs, you know, and his face, you know. It's like there was never any just regular. I think there's one of the single digit non-VFX shots in the movie is in the campfire in what we call the mimic scene, when his hand is just brushing the dirt before Bud does it. That's a non-VFX shot, because it's just his hand on dirt. But almost every other shot, yeah.
We would be honored if you would join us.
It was only at the end that I realised just how much a creative challenge this must have been, because you've got Deck, the predator Yautja, in every shot pretty much.
Yeah.
Were there conversations early on, like, you know, can we do this? How achievable is this?
Yeah, I think, first of all, the challenge didn't hit me till later on. Not just like his face in every shot, but the language subtitled, you know, so much of it. And not just him having to learn his lines, but us having to, and cutting the movie and not really having his lines readily available in every scene whenever we would make changes. It was all, the daunting nature of it all grew and grew and grew as we made it. I think the fun of it was the challenge. Like no one was super doubtful. People were hesitant. There was definitely some hesitancy, but I think that was what made people want to make it. Myself, producers, even the studio was like, how cool is this? That no one's done this kind of thing before. That it is so challenging was a part of the rallying cry to make the movie. So. But yeah, it was insane. Almost every single shot is a VFX shot. 2/3 of the movie is action. I did not realize that. We did the math because we had to QC the ScreenX format when they do all the action scenes. And they were like, okay, you have 60 plus minutes of ScreenX to view. We were like, holy God, that's almost the entire movie. Yeah, it was crazy. It was totally crazy.
So I was looking at the end credits, and you've got Alec Gillis, which makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
But you've also got Weta and you've got ILM.
Yeah.
So what were they all doing? Alec Gillis, I can imagine what he was doing, but.
It started with Alec, as Alec and I did Prey together, and even the animated film Killer of Killers, Alec still was our creature designer. Not only is he a joy to work with, but he's really the one that's been there from the beginning. He started on the first movie working under Stan Winston, and has done almost all of them since then, and really is the aesthetic keeper of the Yautja, you know, really understands what makes the design language work. And so we started the initial designs with Alec, and we actually were going to try to pull it off all the way we had done in the previous films with a remote control mask, and did a test and realized quickly that it was not gonna do what we needed to do. It's just that the mask and everything we've seen before is works really well when you're seeing it in like 5-second bursts and at night, and tends to have a growl on its face and has variations on that theme, but nothing that really can get the subtlety of emotion that we really needed to tell this specific story. So that then became, okay, we're gonna try this crazy thing where we build the suit. We did not want to abandon that. So we had him in this suit, but with an open cowl, and have his face drive the performance, which was going to include VFX vendors, and Weta, because we were shooting down New Zealand, was of course top of mind, having worked on obviously Lord of the Rings, but also the Planet of the Apes movies. And it became a lovely handhold, not only with Weta Digital, but with Weta Workshop. And they built the suits that Alec had designed and helped finish off the designs, and was a lovely to see Alec go down there and tour Weta Workshop, and he was there pioneering the beginning of this craft. And Weta Workshop has become the new blood, and made so many awesome things, once again, from the Lord of the Rings trilogy and onward. And so it really was an awesome partnership that was lovely for me to behold, from the third person. But Alec was really blown away by everything they'd done, and then the movie benefits from so many awesome artists in every kind of craft.
Yeah. So it's he's a teenage predator essentially, isn't he?
Yeah.
So what sort of work went into imagining actors who've never seen one before?
I really just drawing inspiration, not just from the movies, but also from like the Dark Horse comic books and a lot of ancillary material in terms of what the culture would want to feel like. I always, for whatever reason, felt like there was some Frank Frazetta-ness to them, some Conan in their culture, some pirate nature in their culture. I never saw them as the most civilized, nomadic, and then just started thinking about what someone with a chip on their shoulder would feel like, and was something to prove, and all that teenageriness that comes from that's universal, So yeah.
It's fascinating as well in the end credits. You've got Jim Cameron. Thanks to Jim Cameron and Drew Pearce as well.
Drew Goddard.
Drew Goddard. I always get my Drews muddled up.
I know. The two Drews that are both very talented. Jim was probably one of the coolest things to come from making these movies. He saw Prey and loved it, and we connected. We both make movies at the same studio and work with the same people, and they put us in touch. And he, when we were filming in New Zealand, had me come down to Wellington. We were shooting in the north part of the island in Auckland. He had me come. I was actually there for Weta stuff anyway, and I extended the trip and had a little day with Jim, evening with Jim. I saw him shooting, and then he had me in the cutting room, and then we went to dinner. And when we were in the cutting room, I was telling him about what we were doing, and he reminded me of he has links to the franchise because he was on an airplane with Stan and told him he came up with the mandibles, a well-told story, and then he said, I said what we're doing, and I was very nervous. We were just prepping at the time, and I'd just been to Weta, and I'm hoping it's going to work, and then we leave, and I go to dinner. He comes in, and he sits down, and he says, on the car ride over, I was thinking about what you're doing, and it's going to work. And I was like, oh my gosh, and took that back to the crew and was like, wind in our sails. Jim Cameron thinks it's going to work, guys. It's going to work. And then I showed him a cut of the movie a couple months ago. We were not quite finished yet, but almost there. And in the email, he responded to me by email, and he said, with his thoughts, and he said, I got to tell you, when you first told me what you were doing, I didn't think it was going to work. But now that I've seen the movie, oh my God, it really works. Holy crap, So I don't know at which point he was just trying to, help put wind in my sails. But he's been an awesome, obvious icon, and I've looked up to his movies in particular over all of the filmmakers that I've put on a pedestal my whole life. He's really been kind of the most influential in that he's made things that are adrenalized and action forward, but also deeply emotional, and that feel authentic, but also know when to dig into the spectacle of it all. So, his help in so many ways was deeply influential for me. Not just the movies made, but also in particular some of his kind words.
It's interesting you mentioned Frank Frazetta, because I was scribbling notes as I was watching the film, and I sort of wrote down that it's like reminded me of Conan, reminded me of Tarzan, and also True Grit. It's got a feeling like a western in it. Like the dynamic between
the silent protagonist with a loquacious sidekick.
Yeah. I wondered whether like the original Predator is also a genre mashup. It starts off as a war film, then it becomes like sci-fi horror. I wonder if that sort of precedent makes it easier for you to go to executives or whoever and say, look, we can take this franchise wherever we want.
That's everything for me. That was one of the most influential aspects of that original movie. Not only was it like me seeing one of my first R-rated movies and being blown away just by the action of it all, and the horror to some degree, But really, it was being mind blown by the genre mashup, by feeling like I was inside one kind of movie and then entered another. And I since then fallen in love with John Carpenter movies, where that's very prevalent. But Predator really was the first time that I had seen that. Of course, Aliens does that too, but I definitely saw Predator before I saw Aliens. So yeah, I think that's allowed us to make from the animated film really genre hopping all over the place, and definitely this one. That's the beauty of what was established in that original movie, is genre blending.
So rewinding time sort of a fair bit. What was it like growing up in Philadelphia? Because I mean, that's like, far outside Hollywood. It's not even New York. It's not necessarily known as a centre of filmmaking.
No, yeah.
So yeah, how did you sort of know that you wanted to become a filmmaker?
Oh boy, it kind of was always there for me. I definitely grew up fantasizing about making movies inspired by the behind the scenes of Star Wars and all of that stuff. There were moments where I thought maybe I would draw comics or be a writer, and I just was not very good at either of those things. I took specific lessons. My mom found someone at an art school that had drawn in a comic book for Valiant Comics, which was an offshoot from long ago. And taught me, my friends, how to draw, and I just was never very good. And then it really just came down to, well, and if I make movies, I can just tell people where to stand and I don't have to actually draw. So from a very, very young age, I really honed in and focused on that, and started to fall in love with Hong Kong action movies. Hard Boiled was really the gateway for that. John Woo, that what was Star Wars for many people, for me was seeing Hard Boiled for the first time, and then I started taking the train down to Chinatown, and there was a store that sold illicit adult videos, but in the back was Hong Kong dubs of Hong Kong action movies, where the subtitles sometimes were like half on screen and half off. There was a pharmacy. I started learning Mandarin and to talk to the people who worked there to tell them what movie I wanted, and I thought for a while that maybe I would go, and of course Mandarin is not even the spoken language of Hong Kong, but I thought I would go there to learn how to make movies, trying to find some sort of way in, because being a director is so daunting. There's not really a clear path. And then of course Desperado comes out, and The Matrix comes out, and it felt like, oh wow, it's already happening here. I'm not really ahead of it. But yeah, so I really fell in love at an early age, and was thankful that I lived in a city like Philadelphia that did have a Chinatown that I could go to, and really fuel the fire of what I was passionate about. I took classes at University of the Arts, which was an art school in Philly. In high school, there were college classes in high school that taught me about directing and writing classes. So I tried to get ahead of things as much as I could.
That's really interesting, because
Yeah.
the style of your actions, like in Prey and in this as well, is clarity. It is that John Woo kind of, you know exactly where everything is geographically in relation to each other, and the shots feel smooth and planned. Do you know what I mean?
That is essential, I think, for a great action sequence, is clear geography of the choreography, and also cleverness and clever moves. If it wasn't just, I feel like action before John Woo for me was just they're doing the thing. Jean-Claude Van Damme is kicking somebody. Someone is shooting at someone. John Woo was like, no, what if he's two guns and he's sliding down a banister, and then that rolls into this thing and kicks that into that, and really coming up with clever maneuvers inside of the set piece, not just the. And even Spielberg so great at the organization of the set piece of Indy's done here and short rounds up there and that kind of thing. Also, I think has not been included as much as it could in movies, and certainly is a driving force for some of the stuff we have in Badlands.
So how long did you make commercials for before you made your short film Portal?
Before doing Portal, I moved out to LA in 2004. So from 2004 to 2011, but it was one commercial a year. The very first thing I did was, it was, what do you call it? Like an ARG, alternative reality game, as promotion for Hellboy 2. And they were like, there was two things. There was like fake YouTube vlogs, fake what do you call found footage that were posted onto YouTube of people seeing troll sightings, and then there were we shot on 8mm on Super 8 these like training videos for troll hunters that were very inspired by Lost's Dharma.
Dharma Initiative.
Yeah, exactly. That was the first job I ever had in commercials, aside from directing like a banner ad for something. And then I sort of did like a commercial a year. Was never really took off that career, which is sort of what made me realize I got to make a short film, because I thought maybe the path for me would be I'd make commercials, and then I ended up, Hollywood would see what I was doing, which was happening, quite prevalently. But I wasn't getting that kind of commercial work, so I just sort of make my own thing.
I sort of rewatched the Portal short, and not only does it hold up, the thing that struck me about it is that it takes its time. It doesn't. I think some young filmmakers would rush into getting the Portal going. Like, you don't. You kind of take time to kind of establish the situation, the character, the stakes. So it sort of feels like your kind of understanding of pacing and building up suspense kind of was already there right then.
Yeah. Wow. I all I see are flaws in that. So I'm heartened to hear that it holds up to some degree. But that was, I think, at the time, there was a lot of shorts, or I guess what the movie industry was buying the rights for, like Uncharted and Halo and things that were already based on cinematic ideas. And the fun of Portal was that it was a puzzle game. It was not inherently cinematic, and that was just like Badlands, the challenge of like taking something that people aren't considering a movie and showing them how it could be a movie. But it was like take it seriously, which I think led to the kind of pacing that you're picking up on, and the way that I'm not comparing myself at all to him, but before Christopher Nolan did Batman Begins, our last Batman was Batman and Robin, and Batman Forever before that, and it was quite silly. And he came in and said, "What if it wasn't silly?" And I think the same thing's happened for me even with Predator. Is like there's this thing that you consider to be only this, and even with Prey and everything else, it's been what if it was this other thing? I think it could be even more special than you're thinking of.
Was it difficult to kind of convince, it was 20th Century Fox at the time, wouldn't it, to convince them that there was still mileage in the Predator franchise, or were they sort of hungry for another one?
For
Prey.
Prey, it was a funny thing because they were doing the Predator, the Shane Black's 2018 The Predator, when I had the idea. Right. And my reps were like, don't even bother pitching, because they were shooting that movie. I think they were either prepping or shooting. And I was like, you know what, though? This idea is too good, dude. I gotta so I emailed one of the executives the idea, and that's where the name Prey came from, because I was like, I get it. You're doing this movie with Shane now. It's gonna turn into a trilogy, I'm sure. And so we can call this movie that's set in a different time period Prey, and maybe if this is successful, like these movies, this can be the Prey thing. So I'm not stepping on whatever you're doing. And they loved the idea. And we started, they said, go ahead, write the script. And we wrote it. It was all very smooth sailing. And then two things happened. Well, then they said, we're getting really close to that movie coming out. So let's just see how that does before we send you guys away to shoot. And then the merger happened. And then we were done for, it was around 2018 to 2021 or something. About 3 years. And then thanks to an exec at 20th, Scott Aversano, I guess opened up the Rolodex and blew the dust off and said, oh, this is a movie we could make now. And they were stoked because it was a great script. And it was kind of all there. So there wasn't that much more development work that had to happen. We could kind of go right into action.
And what were the challenges like on that film? Because, I mean, most of that was shot outdoors.
Yeah.
So you're dealing with natural light.
Yeah.
You've got an awful lot of animals in. You've got a real dog for one thing, and a dog actor to deal with.
That you've answered your own question. That was the most challenging.
Right, I wondered.
That dog was lovely and awesome, and I think still getting work from what I hear. But was because it had to be a very specific kind of dog. It had to be a dog that the Comanche would have had in that time period in the 1700s. And so they found this dog that was a close approximation to what it would have been, a Carolina dog. In a shelter. And so they just trained it from, it wasn't like trained for years to be in movies. It was only found a few months before we started filming. And so that was really hard. And of course, dealing with nature. In Badlands too, being in nature poses so many surmountable odds, but daunting nonetheless. And I don't know, after Prey, I was like, the next movie, I'm going to be on a soundstage with just a couple of actors, old veterans, no animals, no visual effects, and then Badlands was the actual next thing I decided to make, which was none of that stuff, you know. But it makes it all so much more rewarding when you go through that kind of hardship. You know, and I'm so happy with how Prey turned out, and the same thing with Badlands, and truly. There's a thing. I used to be more adventurous when I was a kid. I used to want to be a Goonie, you know, and so there's definitely a thing of being out in the wild and going out on these adventures. And on Badlands, there were some eel-infested waters that we were trudging through, and it does make you feel like you're on the adventure yourself, and you find beautiful things in nature to photograph and include in the movie that you wouldn't if you were just all on the soundstage. So I can't give up that aesthetic as much as I do find it physically, not my cup of tea, but I'm just drawn to it visually.
So were there any kind of happy accidents that sort of made it into the final cut?
Constantly, all the time. Do I have a lovely happy accident for Badlands? I mean, certainly both Elle and Demetrius got to riff a little bit, which is insane given that the language of it all. Elle did this great thing where we had filmed most of the movie and done so many different kinds of contraptions for her being tethered to him. A lot of wire work out in the wilds, and there was a wheelbarrow that we had strapped to Demetrius for some bits that her legs would go into, and he'd have to kind of trudge along and drag that thing with her. And then one time, she was like, we were gonna do it. We had multiple shots to get her into the harness, and on his back as they set forth. And she was like, I think you could just do it in one shot if I just like stand in an odd way and then walk behind him. And wouldn't it be cool if we like pulled it off practically? And lo and behold, she's a very gifted actor, and she does it, and it's awesome, and probably the most effective bit of that in the movie. And we discovered it with like a week left of shooting, and like from then on, that's all we did, and it was great. So it was thanks to her like caring about the whole idea of the movie, you know, being about trying to pull things off with more physicality. And anyway, it was great. Yeah.
Both their performances are terrific. I think that's one of the things that's easy to overlook in a film that's, you know, got so much action in it, is they're both absolutely fantastic in this.
Awesome.
So yeah, I understand you were directing Killer of Killers at the same time as this as well.
Yeah.
So there was overlap.
It was crazy. I don't know that I would do it again, but maybe I would, now that it's worked out. But yeah, I've done, before Killer of Killers, the only other animated thing I did was for a video game called Warframe. I did it was the opening cinematic of that, and I did that while I was shooting the pilot for The Boys. And so I was virtual there and realized, in animation, it is possible to not, especially post-COVID, it's possible to do more without being directly there. And even though that had a bunch of action choreography in it, and I found a system for me to be watching and give notes and all that stuff. So I thought it could be possible to do this animated thing at the same time. And frankly, I didn't know what they'd say yes to, in what order, and how quickly we would get the scripts ready. So and I didn't want to wait. I was so anxious to make something quickly after Prey because I had all these cool ideas, and they just sort of said yes at the same time. So I will say the writer's strike happened that delayed Badlands, so I actually was able to get more of Killer Killers off the ground with all the animation teams. So that helped tremendously, but there were lots of days where we were in an hour-plus ride to our crazy location out in the wilds of New Zealand. We had a van with Starlink strapped to it and a laptop open, and we'd be going through our notes on Killer of Killers and watching animation or color passes or whatever it was, and then we'd be on set. And there were times where I'd be wearing 2 sets of headphones. One were the Badlands headphones or backpack, which it was called when we were filming, and the other was an earbud connected to a laptop that was the meeting about Killer Killers, and say cut on Badlands, and I'd hear them debating something that I was agreeing with or disagreeing with or whatever, and then run over to the laptop and be like and then go back to. So it was pretty crazy. But now I got 2 movies came out in 1 year. It's pretty insane considering there's been large gaps between my films prior to this year. So yeah.
Yeah. So is there a kind of fundamental difference, I suppose, directing animators as opposed to live action?
Directing animators is very similar to the prep phase of a movie because I work with the Third Floor, same company, and we do a lot of previs for action sequences, and so it's very much akin to that, and performance, same kind of thing. You're talking to them the same kind of language that you'd use with an actor. I will say there's a funny realization in doing animation where it's actually more limited than you would think. The way that my co-director on that, Josh Wasung, puts it is in animation you can build anything, but you have to build everything. So we can make a movie, and that was part of the joy. Was we have this thing with the World War II dogfight and a snowy village in Russia with Vikings invading and feudal Japan and all those things. But we can't make a million sets with a million extra. I mean, every asset that you make, having a bunch of extras, that is time and money and manpower to make those things. So there still are, funny enough, these crazy limitations that you come across just like you do in live action and have to come up with creative solutions for all those things.
So were the things that you had to sort of pare back in Killer of Killers then?
Funny enough, you always try to turn those limitations into, creative, fuel for the fire. There's the sequence where Ursa in the first chapter is pulling off the raid to get close to Zorn to get revenge. And it's all one long take that's sort of behind her. So we couldn't build the whole set. So I devised the shot that would be if we're tethered to her back and we just occasionally look a little left and a little right, but we're just looking this way. They only have to build as much of the set as the camera sees looking that way. Right. And so that saved a bunch of money and resources. And we really, it was crazy that we had all this stuff beforehand, and then we were gonna get to the raid and we were gonna have to cut to the very end of it or whatever. And it was like, how can we still pull off something that's gonna be special and awesome, but affordable? And there came the idea of the long take, Yeah.
Yeah, it works brilliantly. I was thinking about the sort of parallels thematically between Prey and this. Between Prey and Badlands, and you've got the sort of lead character that sort of needs to prove themselves. They've got something to prove, and also interestingly, I was thinking that the fur trappers in Prey are kind of that's Wayland Yutani. They're like the future fur trappers who exploit nature and give nothing back. I don't know if those are things that interest.
That's funny. Definitely the two characters with something to prove. I never thought about the link between the fur trappers and Wayland Yutani, but you're right. So there's a similar structure to the story. They're both survival tales in a way. There's two characters that are suddenly out in the wild and needing to survive on their own and of course hunt something. So of course you're going to have similar interactions. But a funny thing happened on Prey, which reminds me, when they're hiding in the tall grass and she's with one of the guys and he goes, shh, like this. And I remember he wasn't doing that at first. And then he was like, just telling her to get down or be quiet or something. And I said, no, just do this thing. And I went back into next to my DP and I was like, and he did the thing. And I was like, this feels familiar. What am I ripping off with that? And he looked at me and goes, Predator. I was like, oh yeah, the Bill Duke does the thing. And I was like, did I do that because Predator was in my brain, or were we faced with the same dramatic problem and the solve was the same? I don't know. But I think that's how some things end up being quite similar. So I think the things that are analogous in Prey and Badlands are sometimes totally intentional, and sometimes because we're doing a similar kind of thing. And then you're faced with those same creative challenges, and you find solutions from those challenges. Yeah.
Yeah, and having Weyland Yutani in this kind of expands the world in really sort of interesting ways. And I noticed that when the eyeballs roll back on the synthetics, you get the Weyland Yutani from Alien Romulus.
That's right. Yeah.
I wanted so was that something that Fede Alvarez had going while he was making Romulus, and you brought that over, or was it something you talked about happened simultaneously?
I saw Romulus.
Right.
I thought it was awesome. And when we needed to do our thing, I was like, let's do the thing from Romulus, which was I thought that was the coolest thing. Oh, yeah. What a great touch. It was from that, just from seeing it.
Yeah, it's one of those ideas you sort of think, oh man, well, that should have been done years ago.
Should have been done. I totally agree. And it links to the corporatization of Weyland Yutani and makes the synths feel more like products than any other kind of android. Yeah.
Yeah, staying with the synths is interesting because you've got Thea and her sister, and then you've also got the male ones who aren't the kind of middle-aged Ian Holm, Lance Henriksen. They're kind of a bit more Abercrombie and Fitch.
Yeah.
But so are they like a kind of a line, if you like, of synthetics, like combat models, or something we've never seen before?
Exactly. Yeah. It was just thinking about they're sending the synths to a planet that humans haven't gone to yet. Who were they going to send? They're not going to send all of their top-of-the-line specialists or whatever. They would send a couple more intelligent and sensitive beings, and then they would send a bunch of drones that are there just to hunt and fight and protect and do, and we're a little bit more disposable. Yeah.
Are they all the same actor?
Yeah.
I thought,
yeah.
I was only sort of towards the end. I thought, hang on a minute, they all look identical. It's like I think something happens so quickly, you don't necessarily realise it straight away.
Yeah.
So I guess that must be more face replacement, more effects.
Totally. Once again, it's like everything was a visual effect. Everything was an idea. I mean, I love it when movies are filled with ideas, and always pushing myself to think of like what can happen only in this movie. And so like normally in an effects movie, like even in a Star Wars, there's like a cantina scene where it's like, okay, and here they're just humans that are in the cockpit or in the cantina, like they're just talking, and then that doesn't require visual effects, But in this movie, even the talking scenes, she's strapped to his back, we had to erase her legs, and his face, It's like there was never any just regular. I think there's one of the single digit non-VFX shots in the movie is in the campfire in what we call the mimic scene when his hand is just brushing the dirt before Bud does it. That's a non-VFX shot because it's just his hand on dirt. But almost every other shot, yeah.
Was that a Jaws reference?
Yes.
I thought
it was a direct reference to Jaws, which I love that scene. We all love that scene. And I was certain that it was going to get cut. Because it didn't really have a narrative need in the movie, but we loved it so much. And every time we played for people loved that scene. So I was just so grateful that it could remain in the movie. It's one of my favorites. Yeah.
There's a scene later on which I'll be very vague about because I don't want to spoil anything, but it involves some legs.
Yeah.
that do some fighting.
Yes.
And that's almost the sort of antic nature of that reminded me of kind of Sam Raimi. It's the sort of thing I could imagine him doing in an Evil Dead film. I wonder if that's sort of what you're thinking about.
Yeah, I mean, not directly, but I love the Evil Dead. I love Army of Darkness in particular, and definitely we're already making this movie with this creature. The Predator is the main character. We gotta, everything has to be crazy. And that fight what makes so much, what's an only in this movie thing that can happen? Well, we have this character that's been severed in half, and so once again, it felt like we gotta take advantage of what this movie is, and I think it's one of the coolest fights in the movie. I love what she did in it. Yeah.
Yeah, what are the technical challenges there? Because obviously you've got presumably you've got a fighter and you're having to a stunt performer and erase the top half and then.
Exactly it. Yeah, it's Elle doing stuff on the ground while the legs have to like jump over her and do other things. That's a stunt woman doing a lot of that stuff. Things that her upper half is blocking have to be digitally replaced later. Or we just shoot one clean and one with, and yeah, all that stuff. Yeah.
What have you got planned? Do you have sort of plans for more Predator films? Because I mean, like I said, you know, the sort of having this Weyland-Yutani part of this universe, and you know, it sort of suggests all sorts of things, and not even necessarily like an Alien versus Predator film, but you know, perhaps something a bit more lateral.
Mm-hmm. I love that you use lateral is a great term for the way that we have been thinking about this stuff. Yeah, I mean, I have said before that there were three ideas at the start of After Prey. It was Badlands, Killer of Killers, and then something else. So I definitely have at least that something else in the hopper. But would be great to do more in this world now. Yeah.
And do you think it will be a step up again, kind of in terms of ambition?
There's definitely. It could be a step up. It could be a step, as you say, to the side. And I still think there are more things to do that are very unexpected and unprecedented in the franchise, and also even just for science fiction in general. There's some cool things I think that could be made that would be really special for audiences. Yeah.
I've seen you say before that, and I think it's clear in the film, you know, you're influenced by video games. You know, the sections in this sort of remind me of, you know, Shadow of the Colossus, God of War. So obviously that's part of your language of filmmaking.
Yeah.
I wondered what you sort of thought about things like TikTok and YouTube and all these sorts of things, what they might bring to filmmakers. Because it almost feels like they've kind of become the dominant medium, if you like, above video games even.
They don't bring much for me, but it's gonna be something for a young filmmaker soon. What I really think, we'll put it on record here, is there's a style of editing with quite a bit of jump cuts in the way that people vlog, that people growing up with that's just going to be normal for them to see that kind of cut language. And I think in the way that Aronofsky started editing his movies, and people called it MTV editing at the time, and Edgar Wright did the same thing. And I think that there's going to be someone that comes from YouTube that's going to make a narrative film that is in a totally different language than the old guys are doing, you know? And we'll either feel get off my lawn about it, or it'll be like this great breath of fresh air for filmmaking.
That's a good point about jump cuts, because they used to be rare. Like, it used to be almost, you know, verboten. But, you know, something like Manhunter. You know, the final scene with Dollhide's getting shot. Like, there's obvious jump cuts there, but it's it's deliberate.
Yeah, that's true. Cool, man.
Yeah. Oh no, it's been great speaking to you. It's a genuine pleasure. And
awesome.
All the best with the film, and I'm looking forward to another one.
Me also.
I wonder maybe when you had a bit of a break.
Yeah, a tiny bit, but not too long. We'll see. Yeah.